storeroom for a hardware store, but when the BBC chose the frontage for Sid's Cafe, the owner copied their interior designs, and now it's a very popular haven from the rain. Of course, when a place becomes famous, there are always those willing to cash in at the cheap end of the market. But at least some of the locals lend an authentic summer wine atmosphere. On a day like today, walking isn't the best way to get around, so how about a guided bus trip with summer wine tours, the brainchild of Liz Jackson and Kath Field?
We get groups from all over the world, actually. Many thousands want to see Nora Batty's steps, of course. And then we go out to the outside locations, which are very familiar to them, but they probably wouldn't find unless they were guided.
If you look out onto your right, we're just coming down to the pub at the bottom now, where you often see the trio going in for a drink and coming out somewhat later and not quite as steady.
I think a lot of visitors do come and at least hope that they're going to see the filming.
Well, this group got their wish, even if it was the television show rather than Last of the Summer Wine.
Summer wine country. Yes, David, the Americans are past masters at this sort of thing, aren't they? You made a film in Graceland once, didn't you, Elvis Presley's?
Absolutely, and that was rather a ghoulish sort of shrine, you know, gruesome, not harmless like that, you know. I mean, although I remember once when I was about 14, we were short of pocket money, and Bill Haley and the Comets were touring this country, and we got some soapy water, and we sold it on the corner of the street as Bill Haley's bath water. So we did it too. But there's no doubt, in fact, that television does have its effect on real life. In fact, I was looking in an antique shop once in the Portobello Road, and there was a sign on one of the antiques saying, "As advertised on Police 5."
David, stay with us because we're going to take a break now. And after the break, Nina Mishkov gets her teeth into last week's telly, and we'll be finding out what the boys on the beat think of TV cops and robbers. See you in a moment. Hello again, and now it's time to look back at last week on the